Hey y'all, I want to spend a few minutes today talking about how to communicate your investment thesis to your leadership team from the perspective of an SEO team member who's doing due diligence. So at this point, you've done all of your due diligence, going through content analysis, link analysis, technical analysis, everything else, compiled all of your findings, and now it's time to present that to the management team and make a final decision on whether this is a go or no go to purchase this asset. So I'm going to walk through how do you present that information and how do you make a decision with those other team members. So just jumping into my screen here, I am going to give y'all a copy of this template. I'll link it in the description below for y'all to download, but I really like to start out this communication and information and transfer to your management team with an executive summary. So you really want to lead off with the end, right? What's the investment thesis for buying or not buying this asset? What did you find during due diligence? And if appropriate, what is your potential valuation for the asset? Or if your management team has already given you a potential valuation or how much they would pay for it, getting your opinion or giving your opinion on whether or not it is worth that amount is appropriate to put here. Now, I want to also note that it is important to make sure that you aren't necessarily like over justifying the asset sale. I think management teams in general are often even more comfortable and more thankful if you have an opinion to not buy an asset because of the risks that are associated with it. So it is totally comfortable to say that you are not, based on the due diligence that you've done, comfortable purchasing this asset for this price, or maybe even just purchasing it overall. So giving your professional recommendation on what you found during due diligence, whether you would buy the asset or not, and what you would pay for it, or if it's worth the amount that the management team has already set forth, is what you include in this executive summary. Now here I will also include a link to a video walkthrough of this exact document. So I really like to include like a recorded Loom video that basically just shows me giving context and walking through all of my due diligence findings. I find that that cuts down on a lot of the back and forth over email or in meetings where they're asking follow-up questions around specific items that are within your due diligence document. Now, obviously, those follow-ups are still going to be necessary, but I do find that it just cuts down on the overall amount of back and forth that's going to happen because you're able to just speak to a lot of that context as you're walking through and presenting all of your findings. So this is really just meant to be that big executive summary, and that's so what is your investment thesis and your professional recommendation here. After your executive summary, I typically like to basically summarize all of my due diligence into 3 buckets, and those are strengths, opportunities, and risks associated with the business. And so these are basically just like, what are the biggest call outs from your due diligence? What are the notable strengths that came from every single area of due diligence? Make sure to include, 1 to 2 things from the content analysis, the link analysis, the technical analysis, the social and community analysis that you're doing, and all of the other areas of the site and business that you're exploring. Now, don't feel that you need to, again, over-rationalize strengths or opportunities or risks in any one of these different areas. Be really, really truthful and obviously very transparent with what you found, and don't try and sugarcoat it, right? I think it is really, really important to highlight like what are those big risk areas, what are those biggest opportunities, and if there aren't that many strengths with the site, that is okay as well. So we'll typically just outline those in terms of bullet points, and really that being a 3-slide summary of all of those different findings from due diligence and how they fall into strengths, opportunities, and risks. Now, I sometimes get questions from folks around the difference between opportunities and risks. So I just want to spend a minute or two talking about how I differentiate those. Opportunities on the business, I typically view as things that are within your control that you can execute on with your team to get value or increase value on the business or site. So that could be things like improving content quality or cleaning up the link profile or solving some technical issues on the site. Risks, I'd say, are more market forces, right? What if there's a Google algorithm update that happens a month or two after you acquire the asset that negatively affects it before you're able to implement a lot of the changes and opportunities that you outlined in your due diligence? What if there are brand new SERP features that get rolled out and destroy click-through rate? What if there is outside market forces around search interest or other things that are going on in the world that are affecting that site in a way that you just can't control? That's how I differentiate opportunities and risks on the business. And then the last kind of summary slide that I will have before getting into individual sections of due diligence is any outstanding questions that I have. So these could be things like, hey, I actually need more data access in order to have an informed opinion on X, Y, or Z. Or you have some questions around how the team is organized or the responsibilities of certain people on the team or anything like that that needs to be answered before you potentially sign on the dotted line on that term sheet. Now, a lot of this stuff could be things that you find out post LOI, which could be okay depending on the deal and what the information is. I would just differentiate that in your list of questions and say, hey, we really need to know this information before we sign an LOI, or this is just stuff that we need to know before we close to make sure that we do all of our checks and look under every single rock before the deal is done. Or potentially not done if there are certain answers to those questions that you don't love and potentially stall out or make you walk away from the deal, which is perfectly fine. From there, I'm going into each of the different individual sections from due diligence. So you've probably seen some of these slides before in my other due diligence videos on this channel, so I won't go through every single one of these. I'll kind of skip around to the summary slides for each one. But essentially what I'm doing here, and I'll actually include a table of contents typically in the executive summary or right afterwards that link to these summary slides or for each section, so that the management team can navigate to those and easily get the tidbits that they need to in order to really understand what came out of your analysis. So we have our competition and market summary, which is again going over what are your findings from all of that analysis, which I've covered in some previous videos in addition to monetization. We have a traffic analysis summary slide, which is summary of all of the different cuts of traffic that you're looking at. That's by channel, by landing page, by keyword bucket, historical trends, and everything in between. And then also including in here not just what you found, but what is it going to take to turn around or potentially double down on some of the trends that are happening when it comes to traffic. So having an opinion on this stuff and not just presenting the data, but the so what and the what you're going to do about it is important to include in these summary slides. So we have traffic analysis, and then you've seen these before by channel, by topic, by landing page, and keyword buckets and historical trends. And then getting into content analysis, this is the next summary slide that your management team might skip to. This is everything that we discussed in our content quality due diligence videos. So everything from what does the content quality look like versus the competition? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? What are the biggest gaps that they have in terms of topical coverage or content quality in general? Are there any quick wins that are available for y'all to execute on? And how does that translate to who's actually executing on the content? What are the resourcing needs in order to maintain or grow their content portfolio and the opportunities that you've outlined here? So we have all of our content slides that you've also seen in previous videos there. Moving on to link analysis. So this is really a summary of that overall link profile health that I've talked about, and how, more importantly, how does it benchmark versus the competition? Even if it is a mediocre link profile, if you are ahead of a lot of your competition in the niche because maybe it is a bit more of an undiscovered one or a low visibility but high ticket niche that you're really interested in, then that is obviously perfectly fine and an asset that still may be attractive to you. So it's all about relativity here and looking out for those risk factors as well for potentially toxic links that are going to kill the link profile and the traffic graph in the medium to long term, and then also what are the biggest opportunities in the link profile, and obviously the strengths as well. So any notables here are going to go in this summary slide that are just summarizations of all of these link slides that we've talked about in previous videos. All right, moving on to technical SEO. This is just, again, the overall technical health of the site. How complex or simple is that tech stack? Is there going to be a lot of resources needed in order to maintain it? And then doing a full technical SEO audit and having a summary of some of the biggest findings in this slide here. Any quick wins that are available or significant risks or opportunities associated with the site. So have all of our technical diligence summary slides in here, which I've gone over in previous videos. And then the last major deep dive in terms of site and brand analysis is this social and community channels section. So these are essentially everything outside of the website, right? These are things like Facebook profiles, Twitter profiles, Pinterest, Instagram, email, YouTube, all these other channels. Where are they? Are they in the right channels? How active are they? And just how well are they executing in those different referral buckets? And are those going to be meaningful for potential business value and audience growth long term? So essentially, how are they doing? Where do you need to invest? Where do you potentially need to switch up resources here? And just giving a nice summary here. Once again, linked to this slide from the very top so that your management team doesn't have to scroll through all 40 slides to get to a lot of those insights. And then I'll just have some breakout stuff for individual channels. You can see a couple of examples here, YouTube, email, and then various channels as well. From there, I'm going into traffic projection scenarios. So this is, I think, really important for the financial team to understand and just the management team in general around what are your essentially confidence projections for traffic over the first 12-ish months post-acquisition. So creating different scenarios here that range from very good to bad to worse is important to make sure that you're accounting for all of these different scenarios and what the likelihood of those different scenarios are. So the management team should, if they want to go through with the deal, based on all the due diligence, feel comfortable with the chances of a worst case scenario happening and what that scenario is. And similarly, what's the confidence level on getting to the good or very good traffic projection scenario? And what does that look like for the overall value to the business? And this is going to give them really a lot better numbers to be able to do financial projections as well with the CFO and FP&A team. Max opportunity scenarios, I like to include this as a different analysis than traffic projections because it's going to give you more of just like what's available over the long term, not just the first 12 to 18 months post-acquisition. If the site has a ton of additional opportunity that's still available, it's probably going to take you more than 12 to 18 months to actually realize your full potential on the site. So getting to what are those different max opportunity scenarios versus current state on the site. And again, doing some downside projections here as well. But getting to, all right, what does 50%, 80%, 100% of max opportunity look like for your keyword opportunity model, which I've talked about in previous videos. And then what are the inputs that are needed in order to get to those different scenarios? So what I really like to do is if I'm doing a 50, 80, and 100% max opportunity scenario, oftentimes the management team doesn't necessarily know the specific level of inputs or quality inputs that are going to go into each of those different numbers. They're like, oh, great, like let's go out and do the 100% scenario. We're like, okay, well, in order to get as close as possible to 100% of max opportunity, which is often impossible to attain, but you can get close to it, right? These things need to happen. We need to really invest in content quality to be able to 10x the rest of the competitors in the space. We need to triple down on link building and PR. We need to do this or that on the technical side of things and really build a moat around the business and the site and organic search. And these are the resources that we need in order to make that happen. And that could be additional headcount on the team. That could be additional freelancer agency cost to help you scale certain parts of the site. And essentially what's the total investment in order to realize that thing, and then projecting those different scenarios for and inputs for all of these different areas. And then lastly, I'll have some inputs and milestones. Again, this goes back to my video on why it's important to plan out your first 100, 200 inputs on a site post-acquisition. This is going to basically go into what's your game plan as soon as you close. First 30 days, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 3 to 6, and 6 to 12 are the different time periods that I like to do here. So having these included in your due diligence deliverable, at least at a high level, is going to give your management team a really good idea of what needs to happen in those first 12 months in order to realize all of the value that you say you can realize based on your due diligence analysis. And then I'll obviously include an appendix with any other notables. So that is really it when it comes to the information that I am providing a management team with to give them my opinion on the site that y'all are looking to acquire and whether or not you should pull the trigger. So let me know if there's any additional questions or information that you didn't see in this that you would like to have in a due diligence deliverable. Would love to chat about it. And if you want a copy of this template, link below in the description, and I will see y'all in the next video.